Are governments getting too comfortable with technologies that could lead to mass surveillance or even a social credit system? TikTok, which has alleged ties to the Chinese Communist Party, has recently come under fire for its aggressive data harvesting of personal information. A new report has seen wide coverage. This Australian Broadcasting Corporation quote says, "Imagine if someone was going through your phone, looking at your calendar, your contacts, your location, photos, and more, without you even realizing, because that's what TikTok is doing." TikTok is connected to a government that's using mass surveillance to commit genocide. The USA has allowed the use of TikTok, but China has of course banned the use of Facebook and others. Interesting. Will the Western world eventually have a CCP-style mass surveillance system? This Northern Territory news report from Northern Australia says we're on our way. Darwin Council will use Chinese-inspired surveillance technology to gather data on what people are doing on their phones and to put up virtual fences that will instantly trigger an alert if crossed. They also quoted Darwin City's General Manager for Innovation, Growth and Development Services, John Sattler, as saying, "We'll be getting sent an alarm saying there's a person in this area that you've put a virtual fence around." Boom, an alert goes out to whatever authority, whether it's us or police, to say, "Look at camera 5." Other reports argue that the foundations of the surveillance state in Australia are already in place. They mentioned the Encryption Act, officially known as the Telecommunications and Other Legislation Amendment Assistance and Access Act 2018. Critics blast that legislation for the breadth of power it could give to the government and police. But there's also the Surveillance Legislation Amendment Identify and Disrupt Bill of 2020. That bill will introduce new law enforcement powers to the federal police and the Australian Criminal Intelligence Commission to combat online serious crime. The legislation mentions organized crime, the dark web, and other anonymizing technologies. However, senior lecturer in criminology at Deakin University, Dr. Monique Mann, has been quoted saying, "These typically are powers that are reserved for the Australian Signals Directorate. Here, the distinction between intelligence and evidence and the activities of law enforcement and signals agencies is being eroded. This comes with democratic costs, impacts on liberties, such as freedom of expression and freedom of the press." Australia is part of the Five Eyes Security Alliance, made up of the US, UK, New Zealand, and Canada. They're pushing tech companies to build backdoors into their products and services, backdoors that could allow governments to access encrypted data without consent. The previous Canadian Minister of Public Safety has argued that encryption can be a barrier for law enforcement and can enable child abusers. Since 2001, Canada's government surveillance agency, the CSEC, has been monitoring communications transmitted from or received in Canada to identify potential security threats. Critics argue that encryption is vital for freedom of speech, privacy, and charter rights that protect from unlawful search and seizure. A top EU court has ruled that the US data sharing regulation known as Privacy Shield does not protect European citizens from mass surveillance from the NSA. Whistleblower and now exiled NSA computer intelligence specialist Edward Snowden revealed to the public evidence of a mass surveillance state. He blew the lid on the NSA's unfettered access to the public's private communications. Did Snowden reveal the government's failure to uphold the Fourth Amendment, or is he a traitor? What about the Patriot Act? Maybe those questions deserve another story. If the government can potentially see anything we do, are we already living in a surveillance state? And what about the increasing use and collection of biometric data by governments around the world? But countries like the USA are already on their way. The IRS and ICE seem to think biometrics should be almost mandatory to access their services. The argument for biometrics is to cut down on things like identity theft, cybercrime, and other terrorist-like offenses. It could make life easier, maybe. It could also threaten people's right to privacy and freedom of expression. If you have nothing to hide, then who cares, right? However, several organizations, like the Association for Computing Machinery, are calling for a moratorium on the use of biometrics. Critics also take issue with the use of a third party collecting this biometric data, something the US government has been pursuing. Since 2018, Canada has made biometrics mandatory for various foreign visas. The European Union will also be collecting biometric data for people from what they call third countries. And of course, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and Google are all collecting this biometric data, sometimes illegally. Is this something we want as a society? Has it already gone too far? Are we okay with cameras on every street corner, in every shop, at every airport, and even inside our homes, collecting sensitive information? Leave a comment, and of course, like and subscribe.